Chris and Rich from the Foiling Mag, here to do a deep dive review on the newly released Axis ART V2 foil, which they're launching with 3 sizes. At launch, the 879, 939 and a 999.
So, initial impressions on this, it looks a lot like the previous sort of release of the Axis wing, which was named after a World War II British aircraft. So yeah, there's an undeniable likeness to the Spitfire here. However, it's had a serious kind of diet. So the profile's much, much thinner and it's higher aspect. It still retains that kind of tiny little concave in the trailing edge here. And it still has the elliptical shape with that kind of median line that sits across there that gives it that kind of consistent feel. And we found basically that this is really good for winging.
Brilliant. Yeah. Super glidey. Really fun.
So where the Spitfire had a sort of speed limitation, this one's far improved on its kind of glide and its speed range. It's much, much wider. You see on the nose of it, it's actually quite sharp down there. So it's rather than having a big bulbous front like the Spitfire, this has been refined, I think, particularly out into the tips. That's a far more aggressive leading edge.
So if we're looking at it, how it slots in the range between that Spitfire and the ART Pro, it's almost like they've, rather than looking at the old ART, it's like they've looked at the current Spitfire and then they've tuned that up. And it's kind of characteristics where if you looked at the Spitfire, had a really predictable turn radius and it was quite tight in its turn radius. It's got that similar feeling, but it's just a little bit faster in how it carries itself.
Yeah. I found winging, this fills all the voids that I kind of felt about the Spitfire, in that it just had that limited speed range, which was good if you wanted to stay in the pocket, but in sort of faster, like rolling swell almost, I want to be able to shoot ahead of it. So this eliminates that speed limitation I found with the Spitfire, and definitely improves on the glide and efficiency. It feels like a much more efficient foil.
Top and bottom end, isn't it?
Yeah.
What I think a stand-up feature for me of this ART V2 is its bottom end stall characteristics. I found it lifts really early and really progressive and predictable to get you going, but then as you come down to that stall speed, whereas the older version of the ART or even the Spitfire might collapse out, this is really comfortable and it's telling you that it's reaching its bottom end rather than just collapsing. Yeah,
it doesn't just switch on you and go, yeah. I found exactly the same. It feels more comfortable throughout its speed range, and the speed range is wider, which is a really great thing. Tip breach, bit of a bone of contention.
It is. I mean, it's obviously a flat foil. It's relatively flat. It's only got a little bit of downturn.
It's got a little downturn. I don't know if you can see that on the camera there.
Which definitely tells me straight away that it's designed for riding more flat. It does roll much better than maybe their previous ART.
Yeah,
it feels a lot looser.
There's less paddle into the wingtip.
Absolutely.
So it is more loose in roll.
But I've definitely found that as you roll hard and the tip starts to come out, it's probably less forgiving than the Spitfire on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you found that.
Yeah, it's like you said earlier, like if you kind of commit to a tip breach and do a big one, it's great, but if it's a little tip breach, then sometimes it'll catch you out, but maybe that's your body preempting what's going on.
So I found as a riding style, it's really well suited to a cruising, arcing turn rather than a hard pushing carve.
Yeah, and that makes sense completely on a higher aspect ratio foil in that it's intrinsically got more span. Therefore, it likes wider arcing turns. But I think it still feels, for my riding style, it still feels relatively agile.
Yeah. So, it's fun. It pumps really well.
Yeah.
You can connect the lumps amazing, and it's still comfortable turning top and bottom and pushing it through, so long as you're not pushing it tight in a pocket that tip might start to come out.
Yeah. So it probably biases its riding more for winging than proning, do you think?
I've really enjoyed it prone, actually. I think it pumps so well and connects the lumps together so well. It's actually a real joy to prone on it. But I've found that if you've put it in too much of a pocket or you've tried to push it too hard, that tip breach and its roll characteristics, it's told you that's not what it's designed for. Yeah. It's designed for bump connection rather than pocket hunting.
Yeah, that's probably a fair assessment, I'd say. But yeah, so in summary, we both got on really well with it,
Yeah.
I'd say. I particularly liked it winging, and I think it's a big step up from the Spitfire.
I think downwinding, it's not a forte of mine, but I feel like as a downwinding wing, it's probably going to bridge that gap really nicely between the Spitfire, which is possibly a bit slow for that genre, and the ART, which maybe doesn't have the bottom end that people need.
Yeah.
And this is probably going to be a weapon for that step-up foil for people maybe coming off the pump and glide and looking for that next sort of downwind foil.
Yeah. So talk about tail and fuse combinations.
This was really interesting, I found this. So I was running it on an ultra short for quite a while, and I found it quite pitch sensitive, personally. And then Freddie, the rep, passed us on a different fuselage, which was the crazy short, and it felt a lot more comfortable. It's like you could iron out its changes really easy, and I definitely found the shorter fuse made it a more comfortable foil to use.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, winging wise, I ran it on the longer one. So I think it was, what's this? This is the crazy short, so 600 mil.
Yeah.
And it felt really comfortable, I think. So who is the ART V2 for, Chris?
I think it's a pretty broad range of rider. I don't feel like it could be your first foil. Even though it's got amazing bottom end lift and it comes up very easy, it's quite spicy.
Yeah.
In how it rides. It wants to roll, it takes some energy to make it roll, but when it starts to go, it wants to drop and it wants to drive forwards out of the turns. But I think that's probably a bit lively for your first foil.
Yeah.
Anybody that's intermediate and above is going to get on with it. I guess it's for somebody, or what's your riding style? You know, and so if you're looking to push hard turns, it's probably not the one. If you're looking to go top speed, they've got the ART Pro.
Yeah.
It's for somebody, probably an everyday rider that wants to do all genres, but not at their extreme.
Yeah.
I feel.
I found it particularly easy to tune into for my riding style, which is generally more wider arcing turns and following swell and just kind of carving around a bit. It may not be for the absolute like surf-focused ripper, let's say.
Yeah.
My more longboard style seemed to suit it.
Which is a beauty for that, isn't it? I think its range is probably, I feel like its range is its widest range within the Axis range in terms of versatility. Okay. And if you were to pick in their massive, really extensive range now, one foil that would kind of do it all, I feel like this is it.
This would probably be it for most people that are intermediate upwards.
I'd say.
Yeah.
And size-wise, 909, it's pretty powerful. You know, this is kind of a classic size. It's where they've launched their first ART.
Yeah.
But I feel like this has got a much wider range than that, and the ART feels like something you could have in your quiver to run high or low wind, pretty much.
Yeah. So in summary, we both really enjoyed it. We think it's a great addition to the Axis range, and for a lot of people that have bought into that system, it's a great step up.
Well done, Axis.
Well done, Adrian. Top work.
And that is the ART V2 from Axis. Check it out.